In 1962, a 37-year-old British newspaper editor on holiday in the Seychelles bought an abandoned island for £8,000. He had no plan. He had no engineering experience. He had no money beyond his savings. The island was 9 hectares of overgrown jungle, 4.5 kilometers off the coast of the country's main island. It had been empty for 50 years. The vegetation was so thick that fallen coconuts never reached the ground. He moved there permanently in 1973. He spent the next 39 years on it. He planted 16,000 trees by hand. He brought back giant tortoises that had been locally extinct. He built nature paths with a machete. He rebuilt an entire ecosystem on one small piece of the Indian Ocean. Then in the 1980s, the offers started arriving. Property developers from Europe, resort chains from Asia, private investors from the Gulf states. Brendon Grimshaw said no to all of them. A Saudi prince offered him $50 million in cash. He gave the same answer he had given everyone else. The island is not for sale. He had no wife. He had no children. He had no heirs. $50 million would have made him one of the wealthiest people from his Yorkshire hometown in living memory. He could have retired anywhere on earth in comfort. He turned it down. This is the story of the Englishman who walked into the Indian Ocean with a journalist's salary, built a piece of restored paradise that 2/3 of the fauna of an entire country now depends on, and refused $50 million to keep it the way he had made it. Before we get to the $50 million and the legal maneuver that locked the island away from developers forever, we have to understand who Brendon Grimshaw actually was. Because nothing about his early life made him an obvious candidate for what he eventually did. The man from Yorkshire. Brendon Derrick Grimshaw was born in 1925 in Dewsbury, a small mill town in West Yorkshire, England. He grew up in ordinary working-class circumstances. He left school in his late teens. He went into journalism. By his 30s, he had moved to East Africa, where the British colonial-era press still maintained a significant presence. He became the editor of the East African Standard, based in Nairobi. He later worked at the Tanganyika Standard. By the early 1960s, he was one of the most senior English-speaking newspaper editors in the region. Then, the political ground shifted under him. Tanganyika declared independence in December 1961. Kenya followed in December 1963. Senior editorial positions held by colonial-era expatriates were being passed to local African journalists. Grimshaw understood his career in East Africa had a limited remaining lifespan. He was 37 years old. He had savings. He had no wife. He had no children. He had no plan for what came next. He decided to take a holiday in the Seychelles. The Seychelles in 1962 was a remote British colony in the Indian Ocean. 115 tropical islands roughly 1,500 kilometers east of mainland Africa. Most were uninhabited. Tourism in the modern sense did not exist. There was no airport on the main island until 1971. The country itself would not gain independence until 1976. Grimshaw arrived by ship. He fell in love with the islands immediately. He wanted to buy land. He wanted, specifically, to buy an entire island. On the second-to-last day of his holiday, a young Seychellois man approached him on the street in the capital and asked him a single question. Did he want to buy an island? So what kind of island can a working journalist actually buy on a newspaper editor's salary in 1962? The answer was a piece of land called Moyenne, 4.5 kilometers off the north coast of the main Seychelles island of Mahé. 9 hectares of jungle, empty for 50 years. Asking price £8,000. The £8,000 island Grimshaw bought Moyenne Island on the spot. He returned to East Africa to wrap up his career and save additional money for the project. In 1973, at the age of 47, he moved to Moyenne Island permanently. He was not alone in the early years. A Seychellois man named René-Antoine Lafortune agreed to work with him on the restoration. The island had been abandoned for so long that everything had to be built from nothing. There was no electricity. There was no fresh water system. There was no jetty. There were no roads. There was no shelter beyond basic structures. The two men assembled themselves. The jungle had reclaimed almost every trace of human use. The undergrowth was so thick that the local birds had largely abandoned the island because they had no clear nesting sites. Grimshaw and Lafortune began the work that would consume the next 4 decades of their lives. They worked with hand tools. They cleared the invasive vegetation acre by acre. They planted indigenous Seychelles hardwood species that had once been native to the island and had been lost. They built 4.8 kilometers of footpaths through the cleared forest. They installed a rainwater collection system. They eventually brought in electricity and a telephone line. Over 40 years of hand labor, the two men planted approximately 16,000 trees. Approximately 700 of those trees were mahogany. By the end of Grimshaw's life, those mahogany trees had grown to between 60 and 70 feet tall. But trees were not enough. Grimshaw wanted the island to support animals again. The Aldabra giant tortoise is one of the largest tortoise species on Earth. The Seychelles had once supported large populations of them across most of its islands. By the 1970s, they had been hunted to local extinction across much of the country. Brendon Grimshaw decided to bring them back to Moyenne single-handed. The tortoise sanctuary Grimshaw began acquiring Aldabra tortoises from sources across the Seychelles in the 1970s. He brought them to Moyenne. He let them loose in the cleared forest he had been rebuilding. He painted small identification numbers on their shells so he could track individual animals. He established a breeding program. He told the Financial Times in 2008 that he kept the newly hatched babies inside his bedroom for safety. "If you let them go, you'll never see them again," he said. The babies were too small to survive predation by the island's rats and crabs, so they slept under his bed. By the end of his life, the tortoise population on Moyenne had grown from 0 to approximately 50 animals. Today, under the foundation that now manages the island, that population has reached approximately 120. The replanted forest also brought back the birds. The native Seychelles species began returning to the island as soon as the cleared trees gave them nesting habitat. By the 2000s, ornithologists had documented over 2,000 birds on Moyenne across multiple species. By the early 2000s, biologists studying the Seychelles ecosystem had reached an extraordinary conclusion. Moyenne Island, all 9 hectares of it, supported approximately 2/3 of all the named fauna species of the Seychelles archipelago, 1 man and 1 partner. 40 years of hand labor, 9 hectares of land, 2/3 of an entire country's wildlife. But by the late 1970s, the Seychelles was changing fast. Tourism in the Seychelles exploded in the 1980s. The archipelago became synonymous worldwide with the idea of the tropical island paradise. Property developers and private investors began looking at the smaller islands as potential luxury resort sites. And one of the most beautiful, most accessible, most fully restored islands in the entire country was the one Brendon Grimshaw had bought for £8,000 in 1962. The $50 million number. By the 1980s, the offers were arriving almost daily. Property developers from Europe, resort chains from Asia, private investors from the Gulf states. Day trippers who had come to see the museum and the small restaurant Grimshaw had built on the island would return weeks later with their lawyers and their bank statements. Grimshaw said no to every one of them. He had a standard set of questions he would ask each investor. What will happen to the tortoises? Where will the birds nest? What about the fauna? The investors never had good answers because the answers were obvious. The tortoises would be removed. The birds would lose their habitat. The replanted forest would be cut back to make room for villas and pools. The largest single offer he received came from a Saudi prince in the late 1980s, $50 million in cash for full ownership of Moyenne Island. Grimshaw was approximately 60 years old. He had no wife, no children, and no biological heirs. The money would have made him one of the wealthiest people from Dewsbury in living memory. He turned it down with the same answer he had given everyone else. The island is not for sale. He explained the reasoning many times in interviews over the years. He had not bought Moyenne to make money. He had bought it to restore it. The point of the restoration was not to convert the result into a private compound for a millionaire. The point was to keep the island the way it was, available to the public as a piece of natural Seychelles. He said directly in one widely quoted interview that he did not want Moyenne to become a holiday destination for millionaires. He wanted it to be a national park that everyone could visit. By 2007, René Lafortune, his partner of 40 years on the island, had died. Grimshaw's father, who had moved to the island in his old age, had also died there. Grimshaw was now in his early 80s and living alone on Moyenne. He understood that saying no to investors during his lifetime was not enough. After his death, the island would pass to whoever inherited it. Without him there to refuse the offers, the developers would arrive within weeks. He needed a legal solution. Between 2007 and 2009, Brendon Grimshaw negotiated directly with the government of the Seychelles to make Moyenne Island legally impossible to sell to any developer ever again. The result was one of the most unusual conservation arrangements in the modern world. The smallest national park on Earth. In 2008, after extended negotiations with the Seychelles Ministry of Environment, Grimshaw signed an agreement that designated Moyenne Island as part of the St. Anne Marine National Park. In 2009, the agreement was formally finalized. Moyenne Island National Park became, and remains today, the smallest national park in the world. The terms of the agreement were specific. The island could never be sold for private development. No hotels would be built on it, no villas, no jetty. Visitor numbers were capped at 50 people at any one time. The island would remain accessible to the public as a day trip destination from Mahai, with a small fee paid to maintain the ongoing conservation work. Grimshaw established a perpetual trust called the Moyenne Island Foundation to administer the park after his death. He named his longtime friend Suketu Patel as the trustee responsible for carrying out the foundation's work in perpetuity. In his last will and testament, Grimshaw wrote that Moyenne Island is to be maintained as a venue for prayer, peace, tranquility, relaxation, and knowledge for Seychellois and visitors from overseas of all nationalities, colors, and creeds. That single sentence is the entire legal framework under which the island operates today. Brendon Grimshaw died on Moyenne Island on July 3, 2012, at the age of 86. He was buried on the island next to his father, next to René Lafortune, and next to the graves of two unidentified people that had been uncovered during the early restoration work in the 1970s. Local legend identifies those two unmarked graves as pirates from the 18th century. His tombstone reads, Brendon D. Grimshaw, 1925 to 2012. Moyenne taught him to open his eyes to the beauty around him and say thank you to God. Closing. In 1962, a 37-year-old newspaper editor from Yorkshire took a 2-week holiday in the Seychelles and decided he wanted to own an island. A stranger sold him one for £8,000. In 1973, he moved onto that island permanently. For the next 39 years, he planted 16,000 trees by hand. He cleared kilometers of jungle. He reintroduced giant tortoises that had been locally extinct. He brought back 2,000 birds across multiple species. He rebuilt a piece of Indian Ocean ecology that the world had given up on. In the middle of that 40-year project, a Saudi prince offered him $50 million in cash for the island. He said no because the tortoises he had personally raised in his bedroom would have been removed. He said no because the trees he had planted with his own hands would have been cut down to make room for swimming pools. He said no because the birds that had returned to nesting sites empty for decades would have lost their habitat. He said no because he understood that the value of the island was not financial. The value was the island itself. Brendon Grimshaw died with no significant personal wealth. He left no biological heirs. He left a perpetual trust, a national park, and 9 hectares of restored Indian Ocean ecology that 2/3 of the named fauna of the Seychelles archipelago now depends on. The island is still there. The tortoises are still there. The mahogany trees are still standing. The 50 visitor limit is still enforced. The small restaurant still serves the day trippers who arrive from Mahai. His grave still sits next to his father, his friend René, and the 2 unknown pirates from the 18th century who happened to share his patch of paradise. The man who turned down $50 million to live alone on a small island in the Indian Ocean was, by every conventional measure, the strangest man in the Seychelles. He was also the man who saved 9 hectares of the world. If this story stayed with you, like, share, and subscribe. We tell the stories of the people who quietly refused the offers everyone else would have taken. Drop a comment and tell me what you think. After everything you have heard, would you have turned down $50 million to keep that island the way Brendon Grimshaw kept it? I read every single one. See you in the next one.